The post-credit scene for Ryan Coogler's Sinners has been on repeat in my head ever since I walked out of the theater. It was the last time Stack seen his brother, the last time he seen the sun, and just for a few hours, they were free. It echoes like a song that I just can't unhear. The film doesn't just end with this scene, it opened my eyes to reflection. It made me sit with the weight of what freedom really means, especially for those who have never experienced it. Think about it. For just a few hours, they were free. Not forever, not fully, just free enough to breathe. And that breath is everything. But it comes with a cost, because freedom is never really free. It demands something in return, and every character must pay for it. With their past, with their futures, with parts of themselves that they will never get back. And yet, they reach for it anyways, because to feel free, even if only for a few hours, is to understand what it means to be alive. The SmokeStack twins, war veterans, gang members, but most importantly, survivors. They are two halves of a broken promise. They return from World War I not as heroes, but as living contradictions. Black men who fought for a freedom that they were never meant to receive. The country they bled for doesn't welcome them home with open arms, it meets them with oppression. But instead of succumbing to a system that was never built for them, they build something of their own. A juke joint, loud with music and full of life. It becomes the answer to a nation that gave them and their people nothing but pain. It's more than just a business, it's a future. A space carved from pain and turned into purpose. But to create that future, they are forced to do things that stain the very dream that they're chasing. Smoke and Stack aren't just builders, they are sinners. Men who have stolen, fought, and killed in the name of freedom. They may have the intention of turning their juke joint into a sacred ground, but it's built on the sins that they had to commit just to survive long enough to build it. This dream isn't just for themselves or for their people, it's for their loved ones too. It's for their younger cousin Sammie, a musical prodigy who still has the light that they're trying to protect. They want to give him a chance to grow up in a place where he can play freely, love openly, and live without apology. It's also about rekindling love in a world that has tried its hardest to destroy it. Smoke is haunted by the loss of his and Annie's child. This child was a small, fragile hope for the future, and even they had their freedom stripped away too. The juke joint becomes a way for Smoke to rebuild what was once lost. A home with Annie by his side. Stack's love for Mary is quieter, but it's just as strong. He left her not because he stopped caring, but because he cares so much. He wanted to keep her away from the blood and danger that he was wrapped in. He believed that distance was safety, but deep down all he ever wanted was a free life where he could protect her and be with her at the same time. Sinners doesn't romanticize this dream. It knows the world will never make it easy. It understands that in a world built on injustice, freedom demands sin. But through the twins, the film proves to us that sometimes the most beautiful form of freedom is choosing to strive for joy even in the face of sin, choosing to love even after loss, to protect even when you yourself are still bleeding. The juke joint becomes more than a rebellion against America's broken promise. It becomes a declaration. We are still here. We still dream, and when you keep tearing us down, we will continue building, even if it means we have to sin to make it happen. Sammie is young, gifted, and still untouched by the world's full weight. He represents everything that Smoke and Stack never got to be. He's not just their cousin, he's their second chance. For Sammie, music isn't just something that he plays, it's something that he is. Every note he touches holds the weight of past and future generations. Pain, love, loss, survival, it all flows through his musical talent. And in a world that constantly tries to silence young black boys or turn them into tools, Sammie plays defiantly, gently, freely, as if each song is a form of resistance and a prayer for something better. But freedom, even in its purest form, doesn't come clean. Smoke knows this, he's lived it. That's why he warns Sammie not to follow down his path. He isn't angry at Sammie for having ambitions, he's just scared. Smoke isn't just warning him about music, he's warning him about the life that surrounds it. The violence, the loss, the choices that you can't undo. Smoke has seen what sin can do, and he's trying desperately to spare Sammie from it. But Sammie doesn't listen, because Sammie understands something that Smoke can't fully accept, that not playing would be its own kind of death, that putting down the guitar to please others, even family, is just another kind of prison. And when the moment comes for Sammie to choose, when his father demands that he puts down the guitar, he decides to keep playing. Whether or not this was a good idea is unknown. We only see Sammie again when he's an old man. He's become a successful musician, but we know that freedom doesn't come without cost. He must have paid for that freedom in ways that we'll never know. But what matters is that he chose. When given the chance to stay silent, he played. And when asked to let go of his gift, he held on. If Sammie is the soul of sinners, then Remmick is its shadow. A vampire hiding behind southern charm and white skin, he represents the most corrupted form of freedom. Freedom through domination. Remmick arrives at the juke joint with an invitation to freedom. An eternal life with no more fear, no more aging. He tells everyone that they can be powerful, even untouchable. All they must do is surrender. Become like him. Trade their pain for immortality, and in doing so, give up everything that makes them human. This is where Remmick reveals himself as something far more dangerous than a monster. He is white supremacy in its most seductive form, not just violent, but persuasive. He doesn't threaten, he offers safety, and in doing so, he echoes centuries of American lies, that peace comes through submission, that protection is only granted if you assimilate, and that power is worth having even if it means becoming something that you despise. He wants Sammie's music not because he loves the art behind it, but because he views it as a tool. He knows that Sammie's sound can summon the ancestors, it can raise the dead and awaken memories, and he wants to control that power. Just like America has always sought to exploit black culture while erasing black lives. Remmick doesn't want to destroy Sammie's gift, he wants to steal it. He wants the beauty without the pain, the rhythm without the history, the soul without the struggle. When he warns SmokeStack that the Klan is coming in the morning, he's telling the truth, and he's offering an alternative. Would it be better to become a demon than continue living in America as black men during the 1930s? In a country where you are preyed upon simply for existing, where legacy is built on their blood but never their names. How much worse could it really be to become something monstrous if it means that you can be free? And Remmick understands that pain. Many centuries ago, long before Christianity reached Ireland, Remmick belonged to a pagan community, one rich with its own gods, rituals, and land. The culture he came from was swallowed by colonization and the slow violence of assimilation. His people disappeared, their traditions were erased, their names forgotten. And so, in the aftermath of that cultural death, Remmick turned to immortality, not as a gift, but as vengeance. A way to survive history by outlasting it. Ever since then, he's been trying to rebuild what he lost. But his idea of rebuilding is corrupted. He doesn't want to honor the past, he wants to control the future. He creates communities not through kinship, but through infection. Because in his eyes, true freedom is being untouchable, unkillable. Remmick's tragedy isn't that he lost all of his people, it's that he learned all the wrong lessons from their disappearance. Instead of breaking the cycle, he chose to repeat it, this time with himself at the top. The colonized became the colonizer, the hunted became the predator, and now he stands in a black juke joint in Mississippi, offering the same poison bargain once offered to him. Erase yourself and you can live forever. Mary is a woman born between worlds. While her skin may be white, her grandfather's heritage surrounds her. Mary grew up in a black community. She learned to live with duality, treated as white by the law, but raised with the rhythm, the struggle, and the soul of a black life. She fell in love with Stack, and they loved each other deeply, but then he disappeared. No letters, no goodbyes, no explanation. She waited and waited, but he never came back. Eventually she married a white man, built a life that looked like safety, and for a while she convinced herself that it was enough. But then her mother died, and then Stack came home. Seeing him again reignites something she thought she had lost forever, a sense of self. a desire so familiar that it's scary. And despite everything, her grief, her husband, Stack's own warning that he's not good for her, Mary chooses to go back. Not because it's rational, not because it's safe, but because it's true. Stack tells her plainly, he's dangerous, that getting close to him will only bring her pain, but she doesn't care. For once in her life, she chooses what she wants, not what she's supposed to want. And in a world that has tried to dictate every inch of her identity, that act of defiance is monumental. Mary walks back into the arms of a man who broke her heart, not because it's right, but because it's real. Choosing him finally allows Mary to have the freedom to choose something for herself. Even if it will only lead to further heartbreak and pain, it's her decision, and that's what makes it worth the sin. When the night finally ends, there's nothing left. The vampires are gone. Sammie is on his way back home. Stack has become a vampire condemned to the night, and Smoke is left all alone at the juke joint. Morning is coming, and so are the clan. Remmick warned Smoke that they are coming to burn it all down. This place was never going to be allowed to stand. Not here, not in 1932 Mississippi, not when it was filled with black joy, black love, black music. To the clan, it wasn't just a building, it was an offense. A reminder that no matter how hard you try to chain people down, they can still find a place to be free. Smoke could leave, he could run, no one would blame him. There's no heroism expected of a man who has already given everything. But he stays. He arms himself and waits, not as a victim, not as prey, but as a man, a sinner who has nothing left but still chooses to fight. Because Smoke secured his freedom, even if it was just for a few hours. He built a sacred place with his brother that meant more than their people's pain. It was a space for love, even when it kept being ripped away. And this is his final act to protect it. He begins a gunfight with the clan. He eliminates them one by one, not with desperation, but with clarity. The clarity of a man who has already made peace with the end. After protecting the juke joint in his dying moments, the smoke clears. Time seems to pause, and in that stillness, he sees them. Annie and his child, whole, smiling, waiting. Annie tells him to put out his cigarette so that all the smoke doesn't get on their baby. And in this moment, Elijah Moore lets go of the war, the blood, the guilt. He is no longer a soldier, no longer a gang member, no longer a sinner. He is just a man, a father, home at last, and forever free. In 1992, the world has changed, but Stack hasn't. Decades have passed since that night at the juke joint, the day Smoke died, the night that Mary turned, the moment that Stack was reborn as something else. For 30 years he's lived in the shadows, feeding to survive, hiding from the light, mourning a single day that he'll never get back. Sammie is now old and gray. He finishes playing at his bar in Chicago. He's everything that Stack hoped he'd be, an artist, a man who lived his truth, someone who chose voice over silence. But the music is quieter now. His hands shake, his body is tired. Stack and Mary appear. They haven't aged, their skin is untouched by time, but their eyes are different now. They've come not to haunt Sammie, but to offer him something, immortality, the same curse that saved them, a way to keep playing, to stay in the world for just a little longer. Sammie respectfully declines. He doesn't want eternity, he wants closure. His freedom was earned the hard way, through trauma, through grief, through music, through sin. And he knows that living forever would mean bleeding that freedom dry. He's not ready to lose his soul just to keep breathing. As Stack and Mary prepare to leave, Sammie tells them that before the sun went down, that was the best day of his whole life. He asks Stack something he's pondered for a lifetime. Was it the same for you? Stack tells him no doubt about it. It was the last time he's seen his brother, the last time he's seen the sun, and just for a few hours, they were free. And that's the truth. That day, the laughter, the music, the love, it was the only time Stack ever felt fully human, fully alive. That single day cost him everything, but it gave him the thing that he never thought that he'd have, freedom. And he clings to that day as much as possible, because Stack is still here, still killing, still hiding, still sinning to survive. He was granted eternal life, but cursed to outlive the people who made life worth living. His brother is gone, His soul is forever stained, and he is condemned to the night. Sinners isn't a film about vampires, not really. It's about black life in America, how it's surveilled, punished, exploited, and still somehow radiates joy. It's about the cost of dreaming in a world designed to starve you of hope. It asks us, what are we willing to give up to feel human? What are we willing to risk for a taste of joy? And most importantly, what happens when freedom itself is a sin? For Smoke, the answer was blood. For Stack, it was his soul. For Sammie, it was defiance. For Remmick, it was control. For Mary, it was betrayal. Each of them reaches out for something beautiful in a world that keeps telling them no, and each of them is forced to pay a price. But Sinners doesn't judge them for it, because it understands that sin isn't always evil. Sometimes sin is survival. Sometimes sin is love. Sometimes sin is the only way you get to live long enough to see the sunrise. The juke joint may be gone. The songs have ended. But what they built lives on, because even if freedom demands sin, it's still worth demanding. And that above all is what Sinners dares to say. We were here. We fought. We sinned. We lived. We were free, even if only for a few hours.